Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. What I'd like for you to get away from today's show is our greatest growth comes from our greatest failures. Today's guest is Greg Kyler. Let's welcome him and get to know his story. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, Ed. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk on your show.
I appreciate it, and it's a really nice house you're in right there. Yeah, what people don't know, I had you can't. A lot of people don't know who Greg Kyler is, who are my listeners, because I know you from Rotary and local here in Modesto, California. But let's let my listeners know who you are. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Red Bluff, California, Northern California, but spent most of my life in Stanislaus County. I went to high school in Turlock, California, and so.
What year?
I graduated in 1975.
I was 1984.
Okay. All right. Not far behind.
Didn't mean to interrupt you there, but not many people are Turlock High School. You know what I mean? Was there when there actually was one high school.
Right. It was a ginormous school too back in the day. So I lived in Turlock, Ceres, Oakdale, Modesto.
All over the valley.
Yes.
All right. Now, have you always been so I want to get into your business, owning a business, but that's a little bit more in your background. Did you go to college? Did you do any of that, or did you go right into working for companies? What did you do after high school?
Yeah. So as a senior in high school, I got hired by Save Mart. So I was working in the grocery business. And I was, after high school, I was going to Modesto Junior College, but the money that was being paid in the grocery industry back in those days was pretty attractive. And so I was working like 6 days a week, 5-6 days a week in the grocery business and trying to go to school. And I just made a decision that, hey, I think I'm going to make the grocery business a career. And so I dropped out of college. I didn't finish junior college and went right into worked my way up from a bag boy at Save Mart to I was a grocery manager. When I left 15 years later, I was about to be promoted to store manager, but I decided to make a career change 15 years after working for 15 years in the grocery business.
All right. So during the grocery business back in that day, were you making deliveries at home?
No.
What movie I'm talking about? What Mrs. Whatever that Dennis Hoffman, not Dennis Hoffman, the movie about where he dates the older woman.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, we'll move on next.
I met my wife in the grocery business. So
did you?
Yeah.
What'd you do there?
I was she was a bag girl and I was a checker at the time, and 41 years later we're still together. So
wow,
something good,
something right?
Yeah, something good came out of that grocery business experience. But you talked about deliveries. My next job when I left Save Mart, I went to work for UPS as a driver for UPS, and I was making deliveries there. That was that was a really good job. I as a driver at UPS, I thought that was my very best job I'd ever had. I was working hard, in the best shape of my life because you're out and about and delivering packages and sweating. And man, I really enjoyed that job. But the mistake I made working for UPS is I went into management. And so, then, you go from a fun job where you're responsible for yourself to a job where you're responsible for 20 drivers. And that was a little took a U-turn there for a minute.
And what year was that? Were you?
So I started at Save Mart in 1974, and then in 89 I went to work for UPS, and so I worked there for about 2 years, so probably 91, and then I went into management from 91 to 97, and then 97 is when I decided to start City Signs.
And why did you want to start your own business? What was it? Something you always wanted to do? Was it something? Was your family an entrepreneurship throughout your family, or were you the first business owner in your families?
Yeah. So so going back to, my very first job ever was I had a paper route, and, a paper boy, you're kind of your own business person. And I kind of like that, the more accounts you had, the more money you made. And then my next job, I was working for my family, and they had a startup business. And so I always thought of myself as an owner, because my family business was in the startup stage, like I said, and whether or not I had a job was based on the success of their business. So I always thought of myself as an owner. That's my mentality. Paper route, working for my parents, and then so when I started at Save Mart, I worked my way up to management, and still thought of myself as an owner mentality. And then when I was working for UPS in management, I said, I've always had this ownership thought in my head. I need to explore ways to start my own business. And I always thought that I would have to run a business that I already knew. So I didn't really want to open a grocery store. I really didn't want to open up a transportation company. So I started.
It could have been FedEx. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. No, I think FedEx was around for a while by then. But so I started going to business workshops and to determine different kinds of businesses that were available. Some franchise, some business opportunities, and I kind of had a light bulb moment on one of those seminars where they showed us a bunch of different franchises. They showed us a cleaning franchise, printing franchise, haircutting franchise, and a couple of others. And at the end of the presentation, a guy got up in the front of the room and he says, there was a common thread amongst all these businesses that we showed you here today. And I'm kind of sitting back there thinking, yeah, not much comment about any of those businesses. I don't know what he's talking about. And he said, when we showed you a cleaning franchise, we're not looking for cleaners. When we showed you the printing franchise, we're not looking for printers, but we're looking for business people to run these businesses. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because I thought, oh, okay, I don't know anything about the sign business, but I do know how to run a business. I do know how to treat employees. I do know how to provide customer service. I do know profit and loss. The statements. I know how to run a business. I just didn't know specifically about the sign business. So how I chose a sign business was I always wanted a business that wasn't a fad. There's always going to be a need for signs. And so if I brought good customer service to the sign industry, I could have success. And so it was a business opportunity is kind of like buying a business in a box. That, you buy the initial startup training, and then they give you the box, and then you take it and run with it. But there's no you don't have a boss. There's no rules. There's no royalties. It's a business in a box, or business in the metaphor of the business is a car. And so you could do whatever you wanted with the car after you bought it. You could drive it off a cliff, and obviously you wouldn't want to do that, but so you could do whatever you wanted. And so that's how I started City Signs back in 1997, and I immediately expanded the business from the business in the box model was vinyl signs and window signs and stuff like that. But I immediately expanded that to electrical signs, and that's what propelled the growth of my business over the last 24 years. Being able to do not only just the small stuff, but the big stuff as well. In the sign business. So
so what you're saying is it was a business in the box they sold you basically, and then you took it from there? Or because when you were saying that they were talking about what's the common theme through all these businesses, the first thing I thought was they all need signs. So I thought that's what you're going to say is the common theme that he said was they all needed signs. And that's how you came up with your idea, but that wasn't it. So I was totally wrong on that point. But so when you got this, so was this one of those businesses in a box thing you're talking about, or did you come up with this idea and then grow, or, you know what I mean? Was that what these places were teaching you? Were saying, okay, this is a sign company. This is what you can go do and run with this. Is that how that started?
Yeah. So
Okay.
When I say business in a box, I met with the founder of the Sign World organization, and then he sold us a territory, and from the territory, but there was no limits on the territory. You could sell all the way across the United States, and so what I really liked best about it was there was no rules, and ironically, a couple of years down the road, I went back to one of those business seminars and started doing sign work for some of the other franchises that they were selling. So there was a connection there.
Eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So after, all right, so it's sign. So, but you were able to name it whatever you wanted when you're in this, right? That okay, you didn't have to World or whatever of Modesto or whatever.
No.
And now when you started in 97, how many other sign companies was there in Modesto or in the area? Was there a lot of them?
Yeah. Actually, back in those days, the primary means of advertising was the Yellow Pages. So I promptly pulled open the Yellow Pages for Stanislaus County, and I think I counted like almost, I think it was like 25, 27 sign companies in the Stanislaus County sign Yellow Pages at the time. And that really, really concerned me. That was my number one concern, is about the competition. How do I break in to a market with that much competition? And
how did you?
So
you knew I was going there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Way to softball me. I feel like a president.
Yeah. So anyway, no competition, no market. Competition, there is a market. So competition is good, actually, because that means that there's a market for what you're doing. And so I just thought that if I could provide better customer service in the sign industry, then I could inch up my market share. And that's exactly what happened over the years. What I brought to the table was good customer service, good communication with the customers. If you say you're going to have something done on Monday, have it done on Monday. And so just year after year after year, I grew my business, I grew my market share. And so from one of the startup companies in this area to one of the largest, by the conclusion of last year, we were close to the top.
I was going to say one of the most dominant sign companies around, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, no one says, "Well, who do you go to?" Every city signs. Anyway, that's who I went through for all our stuff, and that was before I knew you through Rotary. So all right. So you started the business in 97.
Yes.
All right. So the Edison, my podcast, Inner Edison's about, some of our greatest accomplishments come out of some of our greatest defeats. Did you have any issues along the way that you were like, wow, I can't believe that happened? Or, I mean, because 97, we had a couple recessions since then. So I'm just trying to throw stuff out there just to see if there's anything, because I don't know your full story. So what happened after 97? We know 24 years later, you're a large company. Was it real easy, or was there issues that you had to deal with along the way?
Yeah.
How was employees? Was that one of your issues?
So actually, one of the main reasons why I started my own company was because I wanted to control who I worked around, and both the two previous industries were union based, and so it wasn't really a lot of control there. And I wanted to work around people that were like-minded and had the same goal in mind. And so over the years, I had worked for a bunch of, shall I say, knucklehead bosses, and so I knew what a knucklehead boss was, and I also knew what I didn't want to be, so I wanted to be a good boss. So I really put a lot of emphasis on taking care of my taking care of my employees, which would then take care of my customers. And so over the years, we grew the business every year except for one, and that was the big '07 to '08 recession. And we fell off a little bit in '08 from '07, but we bounced back nicely in '09. And some of those years we were doing a lot of business removing signs. So even in a down economy, there was still work for us in the industry. Not in growth for other companies, but it was still business for us. So only one down year in all those years, and I put a lot of that credit to the taking care of my employees, which would in turn take care of our customers, and that was really important to me.
All right. So let's dig into that, because it sounds to me like everything about your company success was you to be the right boss, but to hire the right people. How did you go through that process? So if I was a business owner, how, looking back, and I'm starting now, what advice would you give me when I'm hiring? How do I do that? What mistakes are going to come along the way? Anything along those lines? I'm just throwing it out there. So
Yeah. So I always looked for quality people first, and then we could teach them the industry. So I came into the sign industry not knowing anything about signs, but I was able to learn it. And I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So my hiring practice was the same. I looked for, if I was out to dinner or I'm at a store shopping and I see somebody who's going above and beyond performing their job, I would give them a business card. Hey, if you're ever interested in changing industries, we could have a spot for you. And so I look for quality individuals first, and then we could train them in our industry, not looking for people that knew our industry and then hopefully conform them to my business practice.
how'd you keep them happy after that?
You
know what I mean? Because you can't make everybody happy, but I'm just saying, what was your business act? How did you go? All right. So you hired somebody who was from the end, not in the industry, and you train them. That's the same thing I do, by the way. Because I like people outside, teach them. Yeah. Sometimes you train them and then they're like, this is not for me after a couple of years. And that's okay. Because, every business is different. It's not for everybody forever. It's some people have to have that calling to be in the mortgage industry and some people don't. But so how did you put a system in place to make your employees happy, that you want them to be happy?
Yeah, so I think it's just the way you treat them and how you respect them, and you understand that you respect their lives or personal lives is why they work. They don't work. Work's not first. Their personal lives are, and so give them the flexibility. And there's an old Dale Carnegie saying that I stole. You do that over the years. You find something you like and you steal it. And it was the saying is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I really cared a lot about my employees, and it was really important for me to make them feel wanted and make them so they would want to pull the rope in the same direction that I was going. And so you're right. Not every hire works out, and some of them you got to let go. But for the ones that know that you care about them and you care about their success in life, I think it pays volumes to treat people well. And we all know what it's like not to be treated well. So, yeah.
Yeah, for years. I was in the Navy. I can tell you a lot of stories about being treated. No, I mean, I was overall my life, I've been taken very good care of, but I'm also, I take care of other people too. I mean, just like our customers for us, they're not the most important. They're always, some people say your customers are the most important. No, customers aren't always right, or they're not always the best, but they're all we have. And your employees are the most important thing for the business. And then if you treat your employees well, they'll treat your customers well.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to say the greatest strength of City Science was our employees, because one person's not going to do the whole job. You can't. And so if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers, and in effect, take care of you.
So when you started your business, how many people was it? Was it just yourself?
Yeah, me and one other person. And then when I at the end of last year, we had 28 employees plus myself. So, yeah.
And I don't know if you want to talk about this on here, but you ended up selling the company last year to your employees.
Right? Yeah. To two of my longstanding employees, bought it. It's a overtime sell of the company, right. And so it was good for them. It was good for me. I was 40 years old when I started City Signs, and both of the two employees that are purchasing it from me are under 40. So when they, at the conclusion of the contract, they'll be doing well, and I'm really happy for them and for myself.
Well, I mean, you build something and I had one of my other podcasts, and I had a lady on talking about what business owners don't look at is, how do I get out of the business I created? Right? How do I exit that? They don't look at that strategy all the way through. And it's something you should do when you start a business. What is my exit strategy? How do I get out of this? Who am I going to sell it to? Think about those things, but we don't think about them until that we're ready. Oh, I'm tired. I want to get out of this now. How do I sell it? Right. My story is eventually, my goal is to sell it to who's ever in same situation, the employees that want it who want to have this company, because I don't want it forever. I mean, I don't want to keep doing this forever. I'm getting older. I enjoy it, but eventually I do want to retire and do nothing, or, you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to go golfing because I don't like golfing. So yeah.
Guess what I do every day, all day?
Golf. I know.
Golf. Yeah.
It's just not for me. It's just not the thing for me. It's not. I'd rather go get on my bicycle and go for, 40-mile ride. So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a motorcycle, actual bicycle.
Yes.
Yeah. Just so the listeners understood that.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's look back a little bit more on your company, because we talked about, that, and treat your employees very well. The Dale Carnegie statement again about how they don't know until they know how much you care. What did you, so after you got your first employee, I have a question. How long did the first employee work for you? Do they still work for you, or did they?
That's a funny story. My very first employee, and mind you, I had just come out of union environments, the grocery business or UPS, and where you couldn't let somebody go unless they murdered somebody in front of you, and you witnessed it. So, obviously that's an exaggeration, but in a way, my first employee at City Signs thought since he had knowledge in the industry, my first employee I did hire had knowledge in the industry, and he knew I didn't. So he thought he had something over me, and he thought he called the shots. Well, I showed him the door pretty quickly and handed him his last paycheck, and he was gone. So the first one didn't last very long, but I've had a long track record over the years of people staying with me for a really, really long time. The second employee was with me for 4 or 5 years. And then so I was one employee, then 1.5 employees, and then 2.5 employees, and, just grew as the business grew.
And, and that's what happens over time. People, they go, I can't believe you're losing, people's lives. We're not their all. This is our company, right? That we created. It's not their company. As much as they work for it, you can't expect them to be here forever, but you want them to be here for as long as they want to be here. And some people work for you for 2 years. I have people work for me for 6 years, and some people will work longer than that. You just never know how long someone's going to work for you. Now, did you set up for, I'm going to get a little personal, 401ks, all those things for people, medical insurance, all that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, because a lot of people prior to this, because a lot of people don't realize that was not a big thing back in the 90s, right? To have that coverage in a small company.
Yeah, it really wasn't. And so early on, I did some of the employee benefits. There were paid holidays, paid vacations, 10 paid vacation days every year, and all the major paid holidays off with pay. And then we gradually added on the other benefits. We added a health plan. We added a 401k. We paid sick days. That was mandated by the state of California.
Yeah. Thank you, state of California.
Yeah.
Just like they're coming up with a new thing, which I don't want to get on here. It'd be on the radio show. So it's mandatory, the 401k stuff if you have 5 employees or more.
Yeah. So, we had a good benefit package, and probably not the highest as far as a pay per hour, but I recognize the value of my employees. Rarely did they have to come to me to ask for a raise. I was saying, hey, I noticed you doing a good job, and your next check will reflect a raise. And it was not the other way around. They weren't coming to me for raises. I was going to them with raises based on their value to the company.
And I'm just questioning here, because as an entrepreneur, but you came from a union, so you guys you constantly went, because my wife works for Kaiser, right? I'm going to throw that out there, which is, I say a lot, and they do, and reviews, every month they talk to their employees and they do reviews and they do all that stuff, where a lot of entrepreneurs have never come from that background, and they don't understand all that whole process and why you do it. Is that something you did through your process, or because you came from a union shop, or is it just?
Yeah, I don't know if the union taught us that, or the company itself, Save Mart or UPS, both of them in management at both those companies. Part of our job was to do evaluations, and I carried that. That was one of the tools in my bag when I started my own companies. I had, so although I wasn't a college graduate, I kind of felt like I had really good training in both of those industries to help me facilitate the success of City Science.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too much into the employees, but I could see to you that your employees were very important to you. And I'm not saying they're not to me. I'm just saying I could see that. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper in that, if that was okay.
Sure.
So through the process, all right, so as you grew employees and people and the whole company grew, when you look back, is there anything you wish you would have known that, if you look back, hindsight's always 2020, that now that you wish you should have known at the time when you were starting the business, that you wish somebody would have told you?
Yeah. One of the mistakes I made is, so when I started my company, my wife didn't want me to do it. First of all, let's get that out there. She wanted the security of a paycheck week to week and month to month. And you start your company from scratch with no customers and one other employee, you're starting off on a negative, right? So, I was really motivated to make my company succeed. And so I probably left some dollars on the table over the years because I didn't want to be the highest price, and I didn't want to be the lowest price, but I was probably somewhere in between. And I know I left some money on the table where I could have gotten more for some of our projects, but I was so nervous about keeping customers over the long term that was one of my mistakes. And then another mistake had to have been I was too trusting sometimes to customers. Well, if you trust them too much on a handshake deal, sometimes those deals can go sideways. And I had less than a handful, but some deals that didn't work out in my favor over the years. So those are the mistakes I'm positive I made.
Right. And it wasn't so much looking at mistakes. I was just talking about, like, as a business owner looking back, wish somebody would have said, hey, by the way, you might want to think about this, and this, whatever that was. That's why I wasn't trying to get you to tell you just the mistakes along the way, because we all have them. We still have to, just because you trust doesn't mean you don't verify. Right. I learned that from an attorney at one of the companies I work for. He goes, trust, but you still have to verify to make sure that that's the case. And it's true. I mean, you never know, but you can't let what other people do change who you are. Right. Prime example, I was in Mexico last week, was in Cancun, and it's a little different down there than when we were in PV. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you've been to Mexico, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you come through the airport and they're hounding you to timeshare, trying to get you out, right? They're just all trying to grab you, basically. They're not really doing that. But as you get through all that, but in Cancun, down in certain places, they got the scam going now where they try to come up to you because everybody has masks at the hotel, right? So you don't really see their face. So they're like, "Hey, it's so and so from the hotel, blah blah blah. Come to my family's, store," and they try to rip you off and all this stuff. So what I'm getting at is, just because there's people like that out there doesn't mean you change who you are. You don't change that you're trusting. You just have to understand what somebody might be doing. So, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And the handshake deals were real big in the 90s, right? In the 80s, that's just how it was. I mean, there was, especially in the Central Valley, it was more people knew who everybody was. They still do today, right? There's only 1 degree of separation for most of us. I know some of everybody knows each other. The word gets around if you don't take care of your people that businesses. So
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
all right. Anything else you want to leave my listeners today with? Last little nugget.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So believe in yourself, and that's the nugget I'll leave. I kind of felt as I was climbing the ranks through the grocery business or through UPS that I should have gotten farther faster, and so part of my motivation to start my own company was did I have what it took to be successful? And there was always a little doubt because in the two previous industries, felt like I got passed up, felt like I got disrespected. So I kind of used that chip on my shoulder to motivate myself. I didn't have any trouble getting my head off the pillow in the morning to go to work, and because my name was on the company. So I think you got to use every tool in your bag. And so when I say believe in yourself, believe in yourself and let the positive motivation or the negative motivation throughout your life work to in your favor. And so we're all looking for motivation in whatever we're doing in life. And I think if you use those tools and believe you can do it, you will.
I'm sorry, I got another question now. All right. So through this Inner Edison, I always find out that as you're building a business, it's lonely at the top. I always say you need somebody, a mentor, a coach, a corner man, somebody in your life that helps you understand, or other people in, some type of group that you go. Did you have that through that period of time?
So the umbrella of the company that I bought into, the Sign World company, there were other Sign World owners all across the United States. And there's 3 of us that all started the same year. We're all within 1 year of age. And so we would get together at least once a year. And so we could always bounce stuff off of one another, 3-way text, the 3-way email, phone calls, or getting together at least once a year. And that was invaluable to talk to those guys, and this is how I handle this, or how would you handle this? And so all 3 of us going through it at the same time. That was extremely helpful.
That was basically your little mini mastermind group.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's basically, there's 2 other owners I know that own mortgage companies. We met each other in 2005 at an event, and we used to get together every month for, lunch or whatever, and go over what's going on. What are you doing? What are you, changes? And now we just, luckily can go through Zoom. We don't have to leave our offices. So it's a little bit easier now, So I think it's very important to have those people in your life, mentors, coaches, because my background, my dad died when I was 12, so I didn't have the figure to teach me certain things, or nobody in my except for my grandfather, who owned a dairy, right? So technically he was a business person, but that's a little different. The cows control you. You don't really control anything, right? So, I didn't have that. So for me to find that out there and find the mastermind group and find the stuff, it was very important to me. And I want our listeners to understand, if you don't have that, you need to get that, because that will help you grow and make sure that you're successful along the way. Even if it's not in your business, but you're doing something else, you still need that type of person in your life.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That's absolutely essential.
Because your wife doesn't want to hear it. And I'm picking on your wife, but the wives don't want to hear it. My wife, I can talk to her about a few things and she glasses over, but because it's a totally different industry, so I can understand her because I was a corpsman in the Navy. So I totally understand her medical stuff and I listen, but how wives are. Yeah. Anyway, so, Greg, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today on Inner Edison. I hope you enjoyed. Let me try that one more time. Thank you for joining us today on Inner Edison. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and what our guests learned from their life's journey of growing his business. Please like, share, and subscribe. Again, Greg, thank you so much for coming on today.
I appreciate every minute.